Breaking tonight, FBI and ICE have raided a mansion tied to an international investigation leading to hundreds of arrests and raising questions about
4:17 a.m. Los Angeles, California. The fog had settled thick over the Hollywood Hills, turning the winding roads into gray tunnels. The streetlights cast pale orange halos that barely cut through the mist. Somewhere down in the city, a siren wailed and faded. Up here, in the hills where the homes cost 8 figures and the neighbors never asked questions, the silence was absolute. That silence ended at 4:17. FBI tactical units moved first. 12 agents in black, no lights, no sirens, approaching the compound from 3 directions. They had trained for this entry for 6 weeks. Every sight line mapped, every camera location marked, every escape route blocked. Behind them came DEA and IC teams, staged in unmarked vehicles along the canyon road. 73 federal agents total, drawn from 4 different agencies, all converging on a single address that had been under surveillance for 19 months. The mansion itself sat behind a 12-foot wall topped with sensors. Mediterranean architecture, terracotta roof tiles, a circular driveway with a fountain that had not run water in months. From the outside, it looked like any other trophy property owned by someone who wanted privacy and had the money to buy it. From the inside, it was a command center. The breach happened at 4:19. Flashbangs shattered the pre-dawn quiet. The front gate came off its hinges in 3 seconds. Agents poured through the main entrance while a second team scaled the eastern wall and hit the service entrance simultaneously. Inside, chaos. 3 men tried to run for the basement. One made it 6 steps before he was pinned against the marble floor. Another grabbed a duffel bag and headed for a side exit that no longer existed because IC had already sealed it. The third stood frozen in the kitchen, hands raised, watching as federal agents moved through the house like shadows with badges. The seizure count started climbing before the first suspect was even cuffed. 14 kilograms of fentanyl pills in a reinforced storage room behind the wine cellar. $47,000 in cash spread across 3 safes. $200,000 more hidden in a false wall behind the primary bedroom closet. Weapons, encrypted laptops, hard drives, and something else. In a locked office on the 2nd floor, agents found 4 steel filing cabinets bolted to the floor. Inside those cabinets were paper records. Not digital, paper, handwritten ledgers, routing numbers, names. One of the FBI analysts would later describe what they found in that room as a Rosetta Stone for corruption. Because those ledgers did not just track money, they tracked where the money went after it disappeared from federal oversight. And the names in those ledgers were not street-level operators. They were officials. By 6 a.m., the mansion was secured. 11 individuals had been detained. The perimeter was locked, and the real work was just beginning. 300 miles north, in a federal cyber forensics facility outside Sacramento, analysts were already receiving encrypted files pulled from the mansion servers. What they found over the next 72 hours would reshape the entire investigation. The network had a name: Project Harambe. Not a joke, not a coincidence. The name appeared on internal documents as a code designation for what investigators now describe as a continental-scale financial exploitation operation that funneled stolen federal dollars through a web of shell companies, ghost corporations, fake nonprofits, and legitimate businesses that had been quietly purchased over the past 8 years. The structure was elegant in its simplicity. Federal programs designed to provide nutrition services to children were exploited first. Billing fraud, phantom meal counts, invoices for services never rendered. The money disappeared into holding companies registered in Nevada, Delaware, and Wyoming, states with minimal disclosure requirements and corporate anonymity protections. From there, the funds moved through a series of international transfers disguised as consulting fees, equipment purchases, and charitable donations. Investigators traced transactions to banks in Kenya, the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, and eventually Somalia. But the money did not just leave the country. Some of it came back, laundered through real estate investments in Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Seattle, through restaurant chains that reported impossible profit margins, through logistics companies that moved goods across state lines without ever seeming to deliver anything. And at the top of this structure, controlling the flow, sat one name that appeared on authorization keys for every major financial decision: Marcus Delacroix Whitfield, the fictional governor of a major Western state, a man who had built his political career on promises of transparency and fiscal responsibility, a man who, according to the files recovered from that mansion, had been personally directing the network's operations for at least 7 years. Governor Whitfield did not just look the other way. He built the road. His digital signature appeared on documents that authorized the creation of shell companies. His encrypted communications showed direct coordination with network leaders about timing, targets, and cover strategies. His office had intervened at least 4 times to shut down state-level audits that were getting too close to the truth. This is not corruption. This is command-level collusion, and the operation was just getting started. December 4, 2025, 5:22 a.m. Federal Operations Command Center, Los Angeles. The room was cold. Industrial lighting hummed overhead. Along one wall, a digital map of the western United States glowed with dozens of red markers pulsing like heartbeats across California, Arizona, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. Each marker represented a confirmed target, a location tied to Project Harambe, a node in the network that had been quietly strangling federal programs and communities for nearly a decade. The operation commander stood at the center console, flanked by representatives from FBI, DEA, ICE, DHS, and the U.S. Marshal Service. Behind them, satellite feeds showed Black Hawk helicopters warming up on tarmacs in 3 cities. The mission was designated Operation Cascade. Over 1,100 federal agents would deploy simultaneously across 5 states, 47 SWAT teams, armored response units, air support from DHS helicopters, naval vessels positioned off the coast to intercept any maritime escape attempts. And for the first time in a domestic operation of this scale, F-15 fighter jets on standby to enforce restricted airspace over key target zones. The scope was unprecedented, and it needed to be. At 5:30 a.m., the first strike teams moved. In Fresno, agents hit a food distribution warehouse that had been billing the state for 2 million meals per month while serving fewer than 8,000. The warehouse manager tried to destroy hard drives with a hammer. He did not get past the second one before agents stopped him. In Phoenix, a tactical unit breached a ranch compound that intelligence had identified as a transit point for human trafficking operations. 17 individuals were rescued, 31 suspects detained, and in a hidden basement beneath the main house, agents found shipping manifests that showed a steady flow of people being moved north into California under cover of agricultural transport. In San Diego, ICE teams raided a series of massage parlors and restaurants that had been flagged as money laundering fronts. The cash haul exceeded $400,000 in the first 2 hours. In Seattle, federal agents executed warrants on a tech consulting firm that had received over $12 million in pandemic relief funds while employing exactly 3 people. All 3 attempted to flee. None succeeded. And in Sacramento, less than a mile from the state capitol building, agents arrested 14 individuals connected to Governor Whitfield's inner circle. Chief of Staff, Deputy Budget Director, 3 legislative aides, a communications consultant, and the head of a nonprofit foundation that had received $47 million in state grants over 4 years while providing almost no documented services to anyone. The underworld took more damage in 6 hours than in the last 6 years. But the most disturbing discoveries were still coming. What Operation Cascade revealed was not just a criminal network, it was a parallel system. Investigators examining the seized servers found evidence that the network had systematically infiltrated law enforcement at multiple levels. Not through blackmail or threats, through money, through patience, through relationships built over years. 112 law enforcement personnel across 5 states were identified in the files as having received payments from network-connected sources. Some were small amounts, 2,000 here, 5,000 there. Enough to buy silence, enough to buy a slow response time, enough to buy a warning when audits were coming. Others were more deeply compromised. A Border Patrol supervisor in Arizona had been receiving monthly payments of $15,000 for 3 years in exchange for advance notice of shift rotations and patrol grid changes. His information had allowed at least 47 smuggling runs to cross undetected. A county sheriff in Nevada had accepted campaign contributions from a network-controlled political action committee and had subsequently declined to investigate 3 complaints about suspicious activity at network-connected businesses in his jurisdiction. A state police commander in California had personally intervened to release a network operative who had been detained during a routine traffic stop with $200,000 in cash in his trunk. And at least 7 judges across the region had been identified as having received gifts, travel, or other benefits from network-associated individuals while presiding over cases involving network defendants. The honest officers who remained were devastated. One veteran detective in Los Angeles, speaking anonymously to investigators, described the feeling as learning that your own family had been working against you. 4 years, right in front of you, and you never knew. Federal agents arrested 31 law enforcement personnel in the first week of Operation Cascade. More arrests were expected as forensic analysis continued. The badge itself would need to be rebuilt from the ground up. But the network's ambitions extended far beyond California. As analysts dug deeper into the Project Harambe files, they discovered that the Los Angeles mansion was not the only command center. It was not even the primary one. The real headquarters, according to recovered documents, was in Minneapolis. The Twin Cities had become the financial hub for the entire continental operation. Money stolen from federal programs in California, Arizona, and Nevada was routed through shell companies registered in Minnesota. Human trafficking routes from the southern border connected to receiving operations in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And the network's political protection infrastructure was anchored by relationships with officials who had been cultivating plausible deniability for years. The connection to the Somali-linked trafficking operations that federal agents had been tracking for over a decade was now clear. This was not multiple separate criminal enterprises. This was one network operating across state lines and international borders with coordination that rivaled legitimate multinational corporations. The logistics were sophisticated. Trucking contractors moved product disguised as food shipments. Agricultural routes through the Central Valley connected to cold storage facilities that doubled as drug distribution hubs. Port cities along the West Coast received containers that had been pre-cleared by compromised customs officials. And through it all, human beings were moved like inventory, trafficked through a system that treated them as assets to be exploited rather than people to be protected. Federal investigators estimated that the network could move 8 to 12 tons of narcotics per month without triggering standard interdiction alerts. They estimated that human trafficking operations had generated over $200 million in revenue over the past 5 years alone. They estimated that welfare fraud connected to the network exceeded $1 billion when all programs were accounted for. But the most chilling discovery was in the final phase of Governor Whitfield's documented plan. The files called it Phase 7. Phase 7 was not about continuing the operation. It was about making it permanent. About restructuring state government to permanently shield network activities from federal oversight. About placing network-aligned individuals in every position that could threaten exposure. About building a shadow government that would outlast any single administration. The system was not just being exploited, it was being redesigned for the cartel's future. The arrests continued through December and into January. Governor Whitfield was taken into custody on December 17, 2025, at his private residence in the northern part of the state. He did not resist. He asked to speak with his attorney, and he declined to answer any questions. The indictment against him ran to 412 pages. It charged him with racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, conspiracy to exploit federal programs, and obstruction of justice. If convicted on all counts, he faced a maximum sentence of over 200 years in federal prison. He was the highest-ranking elected official in American history to be charged with directly operating a criminal enterprise of this scale. But he was not alone. By the end of January 2026, federal prosecutors had filed charges against 417 individuals connected to Project Harambe. They had seized assets valued at over $800 million. They had recovered documents that would take years to fully analyze. And they had rescued over 200 trafficking victims who had been held in conditions that investigators described as modern slavery. The human cost, however, could not be measured in numbers. In California alone, fentanyl connected to the network had killed an estimated 11,000 people over the past 5 years. Families destroyed, communities hollowed out, emergency rooms overwhelmed, first responders traumatized by the scale of death they encountered every shift. In Minneapolis, children who were supposed to receive nutritious meals instead received nothing while adults collected checks for services never rendered. Schools that depended on federal nutrition programs found their budgets gutted and their students hungry. In every state touched by the network, the damage was deep and will take generations to repair. Power does not always need open violence. Sometimes it only needs silence. The network that federal agents dismantled did not conquer through force. It conquered through patience, through exploitation, through the quiet corruption of systems that were built to help people and were turned instead into instruments of theft and control. This is what organized crime looks like in the modern era. Not cartels fighting in the streets, not shootouts at the border, but sophisticated financial operations that move through the same channels as legitimate commerce, that exploit the same programs designed to protect the vulnerable, that corrupt the same institutions supposed to serve the public. The officials who built this network understood something that most citizens never think about. They understood that complexity is camouflage, that bureaucracy creates blind spots, that trust in systems can be weaponized against the people those systems were created to protect. And they understood that ambition, properly disguised, looks exactly like public service. If you are still watching, tap like so more people see this story. Comment the word expose if you want this kind of corruption dragged into the light. And remember, this story is fictional, a dramatization inspired by real issues facing communities across America. The arrests are invented, the names are created, the operation is imagined, but the threat is real. Political infiltration by organized crime is not a future danger. It is a present reality. Networks that exploit federal programs exist. Systems designed to move money and people outside legal oversight operate every day. And the only defense against them is transparency, accountability, and the willingness to ask uncomfortable questions about how power is actually exercised. The investigation into Project Harambe continues. The files recovered from that mansion in the Hollywood Hills are still being analyzed. And somewhere right now, someone is building the next network. The question is whether we will find it before it finds us.